G'day. One of the more unusual projects that my wife asked me to do was repair a Christmas tree base. It's made out of plastic. The tree is probably 15, 20 years old and it cracked. Now, once plastic starts cracking, the rest of it's probably not too far behind, so rather than try and fix that, I went to make up a new Christmas tree base. One of them. So this is a little bit about doing that. I managed to use my donut dolly. I wasn't expecting to use it for this job first up, but it was there and I needed to have a domed piece of metal, so you know it gets a run in this video. As always, I've got too many projects scattered around the place, but I thought I'd show you this. This is the way that the legs slot on. Now this is a non-starter for aluminium. It would bind up too much and it call for a lot of machining, but basically that leg just slots in there and sits quite nicely. So the problem with the current base is that one of these is broken off and so it won't go in there, so I have to come up with some other way around that. The process begins by cutting out the shapes that are going to be needed. I guess more properly it begins with making up some paper templates. And I've then stuck those to card just to make them a bit more durable. But that one is for this piece here. Less a small allowance there for material thickness. I haven't got the legs here, but I've also made a similar one for the legs, put some marks on there. When I cut these out, I'll put a center punch mark or something like that there so that I know where the fold lines are. Then it's a matter of getting a circle, dishing that, cutting that and working from there. You can actually cut a curve with a set of bench shears. The scribe line might not be too clear there, but it's the same process. Before you put a small notch in there just to anchor it, the difference being that as you cut, you're going to pull the material around so it follows the curve. It does help to have a thin piece there. If you've got a big thick bit, it's going to be much more difficult to cut, but as it is, it's just a matter of bit of gentle pressure while rolling around, keeping track of the line and where the blade is, and going from there. So curve cut, there's the off cut, and yes, it even matches the template. I've got another template for the curvature of these things, so I'll run these through the roll and get those the right shape. I guess one of my equipment is a set of rolls, but you could also shape this round a curved section if you wanted to, such as the sides of the dolly I'm going to use. I folded up the leg pieces here. They just managed to fit on the folder. You might be able to pick, there's a slight bulge just there. I need to flatten it out. That's where it was just riding up on the fingers a little bit. The template that I had has a slight notch in the end. To try and cut that out, I could have cut that and that, but clearing that middle bit out would have been trickier. So I just left that, and as you can see, there's a slight overhang there, and I'll come along and I'll trim that later. The next thing I want to do, and I've also rolled the side pieces as well. The next thing I want to do is do the domed top of this. So I've got a blank. I couldn't get a full circle out of the material I had, and I thought, well, you know, for an extra 20-25 millimeters and then to cut that off because it's going to be a triangular shape, probably not all that useful. So I'm just going to use my dolly here for the first time in anger. Not what I expected to use it for, but there you go. And I'm just going to sort of gently dish that. It doesn't need to be much, probably 10 millimeters over the full width, but that'll then give me something that looks similar to. What I'm then going to do is make up a socket, cut a hole in here, mount that there, put a triangular plate on the bottom of this, weld it all up, and see what mayhem ensues. one of the problems with working with a non-symmetrical piece like this is that the material that's hanging on here helps to shape and constrain things. So this is around about the amount of dish that I want, but it's got a bit of a fold that way, so I just need to watch that. I did a circle around here so I'd know when I was going to be doing full circles on the dolly. You know, it's just a matter of going around and so on. So I probably need to give that a little bit more work and try and flatten that out a little bit. I may also use the outside there with a you know, a flat mallet just to smooth that out a little bit. But you know, this has worked quite nicely for doing this sort of thing. Now that I've got this, it's a matter of putting that on there, cutting out the appropriate triangles, and then, you know, welding in the stiffening pieces. I've got my base bit here with the sides fitted, some welds. I need to bring these ends in a bit because the feet have got to sit there and they're not going to match up. I've made an error there, I think. I just freehand drew these curves, and I need to bring that in a bit more. So I've got these welded up. These are just a bit of 5mm plate in the end of the bent up section. I'm going to have a couple of tapped holes in here and have a keyhole arrangement in the other side, and this will just slot together, and that should be fine. This end I'm going to put a bit of a cap on, maybe with a bit of a return in there, even if I can't weld it, and then I'll screw a leg on that. I need to just be careful with that because I don't know whether this is going to get painted or whether it'll want to be anodized or what the story is. So I just need to be a little careful about putting things that won't work well in an anodizing bath. But as it is, that's not doing too badly. I've gone and put a recess around these holes, and this one's actually got a 4-degree angle on it because the top of that is curved around about that much. I've gone and put a recess, material thickness recess around these holes so that I can cut a hole in the aluminium and have that, you know, basically flush. I can run a weld around there, take it back, and it'll be all good. This one's got a 4-degree angle on it, so I had to set the top slide over slightly. You might just be able to pick that. And that's just because the top of this is curved and it's around about 4 degrees. Now, I'm going to cut a hole through here with an annular cutter. You could use a hole saw if you wanted, but I've got an annular cutter about the right size. But you can probably see a centre pop there. That was used when I marked out the circle. I'm not sure that's in exactly the centre. So what I'm going to do is, using my height gauge, I'm just going to stand this up on each of the 3 ends, scribe a line, get a location there, and then I'll have a much better idea where that centre is. That probably doesn't matter too much if it's a millimetre or so out, but I am a bit concerned that if it's, you know, a little bit more, then it's going to look a bit odd. I now need to join the base and the feet together. Now I could just weld those and have this gigantic 3-pointed star thing hanging around, but I prefer to have them demountable like the previous ones. And so what I'm going to do is put a pin and a screw in there. I had several options for doing that, and I'll show you those. The first possibility is some sort of, you know, quarter turn arrangement. I've actually got that the wrong way around. Those should be vertical. Doesn't matter. The problem with that is that aluminium will bind on itself, and so trying to get that to work could be interesting. I'd also need some form of ramp or spring or something in there, and that just got too complicated. I then thought about a double keyhole arrangement. Single keyhole wouldn't be any good because the thing could twist, and that was workable. Could have done that, but then I decided, well, maybe I just do something really simple, and so on the base I'm going to put a hole for a pin plus a slot, and on the leg I'm going to put a pin plus a knob, captive knob on a thread here. So basically a knob, a nut on the end of a thread, burr the end of the thread over so it can't come off, but then what it means is the leg will slide up, pop on, and then from underneath you'll be able to do up the little thumb wheelie thing. This is how I'm going to capture the base of the tree. I've got, well, I guess you'd call it a half cotter. So basically a screw goes in there, and then you can see that wedge there just pulls that up against the stem of the tree. I've fitted it, it works, that's all good. I'm now going to mount that into the base. So I'll put that in there and just basically run a weld bead around the top. For that to work, I'll have my screw coming in the sides like that, and that looks like it sticks out, but it doesn't really. So that'll stick out like that. I also mentioned some nuts, so the other captive nuts there. So they'll just sit on an M5 thread, slot in, and then you'll be able to just flick those up with a thumb. Not a problem. The whole basis for this is that, if you can imagine the stand sitting like that, the weight of the tree is going to want to push that like that. So the top of the joint will be in compression, so it just needs a pin to hold it steady. The bottom is going to be in a bit of tension, and so the nut on the thread there should be enough to tighten that up and work quite nicely. And here's the finished article. I've got to paint it. I thought you guys might get overly stimulated if I did a video of watching paint dry, so I'll pass on that one. But it's got to be painted and a few edges taken off. I've got the half cotter here to clamp the tree base. The legs themselves, that needs to be secured, but all I need to do is partly undo one of the nuts there, pull that out, and then that'll pop off. And then going back on is basically the reverse of that. So that's better. The holes are probably tighter than they need to be, but I wanted to get it so that the dowels worked. So there we go, a Christmas tree base. One of the more unusual things I've done in the shed, but it's another project, and it's another thing that you can do in your shed. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you for the next one.